I'm Rachel, 32. 3 days ago, my parents told me I had 72 hours to get out of the house. I spent years saving because my sister Madison now owns everything. If you were standing in my place at this age, what would you do first? I hope you'll let me know in the comments. The moment is still sharp, every detail crisp as winter air. The family home in Redmond, Washington has always been my anchor, a place where I fixed creaky steps, painted rooms, and kept the roof over our heads when times got rough. For most of my adult life, I believed home was a thing you could build with effort day after day. But now the walls seem to echo with an entirely different meaning. It started like any other evening. I came home from work, shoes soaked from the rain, a grocery bag balanced on one hip. The kitchen was warm, lights golden, the faint smell of soup simmering. Mom was wiping down the counter, Dad sat at the table reading the mail, and everything felt almost normal. But the air was heavy with something unspoken. I barely got my coat off before Mom said, "Sit down, Rachel." Dad avoided my eyes. There was a letter on the table, an envelope I didn't recognize. My heart started pounding. You don't forget that feeling, the sense that you're about to lose something you didn't even realize was at risk? Dad cleared his throat. "Your sister Madison will be taking over the house. We need you to pack your things. You have 72 hours. My mind spun. It made no sense. I thought maybe this was a joke, some strange misunderstanding, but their faces told me everything. Madison, the golden child, had always gotten the benefit of every doubt, every last bit of forgiveness, every excuse made on her behalf. I was the responsible one, the one who stayed, who paid the bills, who kept this house upright when no one else could or would. I looked at the letter. The words blurred, but the message was clear. My time here was up. I tried to speak, but my voice stuck somewhere between my chest and my throat. For years, I worked overtime, poured every extra paycheck into the mortgage and repairs. I paid over $110,000 to keep our home. I remember late nights on the kitchen floor, matching receipts to bank statements, hoping it would all be worth it. I upgraded the furnace, replaced the washer, patched leaks, things nobody else bothered to notice. Madison, meanwhile, floated in and out phone calls from California, always perfectly timed for the holidays or birthdays. She was the golden child, the one everyone adored. If she missed a family dinner, it was. She's busy, you know how she is. When I skipped a gathering because of work, I got lectures about priorities. Family first, Rachel. You're the steady one. Madison's just different. I should have seen this coming. The pattern had always been there, written in birthday cards with extra cash for Madison in the way my parents' eyes lit up when she called from across the country. For as long as I can remember, I've been the fallback plan, useful when there's a crisis, invisible when things are calm. That night, I barely slept. Every sound in the house felt amplified, the humming fridge, the creak of the hall, the gentle patter of rain against the window. My mind ran over every sacrifice, every holiday missed, every dollar transferred, every time I let something slide for the sake of peace. The pain was sharp, but beneath it was a growing, stubborn resolve. I didn't start packing right away. Instead, I sat on my bed, made a list, not of what to take, but of what I refused to let them erase. Memories of my grandfather teaching me how to patch drywall. The first paycheck I signed over to keep the heat on. The mug he gave me for college graduation, still chipped, but perfectly mine. I told myself it didn't matter that I'd figure something out like I always did. But as dawn crept over the Redmond sky, the house felt smaller, and my world, once so steady, was suddenly hanging by a thread. In the quiet, I realized this wasn't just about losing a roof. It was about being written out of my own story. Redmond, Washington. 6 years earlier, I was 26, and I still believed family meant forever. Those years now feel like a faded photograph, edges blurred by time, but the details still sting. After college, I landed my first tech job, a position that meant long hours but decent pay. I remember thinking I could finally give something back, could help lift the weight my parents had been carrying. The family home, modest but full of memories, seemed unbreakable. Then the bottom fell out. My dad's job vanished in a wave of layoffs. Mom's part-time gig barely covered groceries. I watched the numbers drop in the joint account, felt the heaviness in every quiet dinner. The mortgage bill was a mountain. My parents tried to shield me at first, soft voices behind closed doors, tense smiles at breakfast. But I saw the cracks, the worry in Dad's eyes, the way Mom stopped buying little extras at the store. The envelope from the bank grew thicker each month, the letters more urgent. One night I caught them at the kitchen table, heads bowed over overdue statements, hands clenched together. That's when I made the decision. I took on more shifts, accepted every project, lived on ramen and determination. Each paycheck, I transferred every extra cent into the mortgage. Over 3 years, I paid more than $110,000 to keep us afloat. It was a blur of sleepless nights and color-coded spreadsheets, a constant game of just enough. I patched up the roof after a spring storm, spent weekends crawling under the house to fix pipes. There were long evenings at the hardware store, me standing in the aisle with a list trying to stretch every dollar. I paid for a new furnace, bought a washer when ours quit. Altogether, the repairs and upgrades cost me over $10,000, but I never complained. I told myself it was what anyone would do. The thing is, my efforts often went unnoticed. My parents would say, "You're good with numbers, Rachel, you'll figure it out." When I replaced the fridge, Mom joked, "Well, Madison always hated that old thing." Madison, my sister, the golden child, she was always elsewhere, Los Angeles, San Francisco, sometimes not even in the country. Her visits were rare, phone calls even rarer, but when she did call, it was a family event. If I missed a dinner because of work, Mom would sigh, "We count on you, Rachel. Don't let work take over." But when Madison didn't show up for the holidays, it was, "She's got so much going on." You know, Madison, I carried the load quietly. There were nights I wanted to ask, why am I always the one expected to fix everything? But I bit my tongue. I told myself family first. For as long as I can remember, I was the responsible one. Madison, even from 1,000 miles away, was the shining star, her achievements celebrated, her absence forgiven. Sometimes, when the house was quiet, I wondered if my efforts would ever matter, if I'd ever stop being just the safety net. One winter, as I scraped ice off the walkway alone, Mom called to tell me Madison had landed a big promotion. They talked for nearly an hour. I listened from the hallway, shovel still in hand, the ache in my back, no match for the sting in my chest. Yet I kept going. I stacked every receipt in a drawer, thinking maybe someday I'd need proof. I fixed what broke, paid what was due, and convinced myself it would all be worth it. Looking back, I wish I'd questioned more, demanded more. But hope is a stubborn thing. I believed somehow that effort would equal love. But as I would learn, the math didn't add up. By the time I turned 30, the house stood firm thanks to my work, my money, my sacrifices. But the distance in my family, especially with Madison, felt wider than ever. 3 years ago in Redmond, I was 29 and thought I'd finally earned my place in this house. By then, my routine was so ingrained I could walk through the dark kitchen and find every light switch by memory. Most nights, I didn't think about what I'd given up. I just worked, saved, and took care of what needed taking care of. But that year changed everything. My grandfather, my last anchor on my mother's side, passed away in late spring. The funeral was quiet, just a handful of us in black coats standing beneath gray Washington skies. I remember the rain steady and soft, blurring the lines of grief and exhaustion. He'd always told me, "Rachel, this house will always be yours." I clung to those words through the numb days that followed. When the will was read, I waited for clarity, for reassurance. My parents handled everything with efficiency arrangements, paperwork, quiet discussions that didn't include me. At first, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. I returned to work, handled the bills, kept the house running. Madison sent flowers, called for 5 minutes, apologized for not being able to make it back. "You know how busy things are out here," she said, her voice warm but distant. My parents told everyone how proud they were of her new job, her latest move, her growing network. No one mentioned the years she'd been gone, the empty chair at every family gathering. Still, the house was my responsibility. I paid the bills, scheduled the repairs, made sure the taxes were handled. But little things started to shift. My parents began making more and more decisions without me. "You don't need to worry about that, Rachel. Just focus on your work." They started dropping comments about the future, tossing around ideas about selling, about downsizing. Sometimes I'd come home to find them in quiet conversation with a real estate agent or a neighbor. There was a tension beneath the surface, a sense that I was being slowly moved to the margins. I tried to ignore it. I kept doing what I always did, cleaned gutters, fixed the broken fence, even replaced a leaky window myself. I told myself it was just a phase. Family always comes around, I thought. But the uneasy feeling grew every week. One afternoon, I overheard Mom and Dad in the kitchen. Their voices were hushed, but the words were clear. "Once everything is finalized, Madison will have the final say." My hands shook as I finished folding laundry in the hallway. For a moment, I felt invisible, erased from my own story. I started keeping better records. Every transfer, every receipt, every email. Something in me shifted. A cautious part of my mind began building a case even as my heart still hoped for the best. The days after the funeral stretched out. At dinner, my parents talked more about Madison's life than about the one happening right in front of them. My accomplishments shrank to background noise even as I worked harder than ever. Sometimes I'd walk the house late at night, mug of tea in hand, touching the walls my grandfather painted. I'd sit in the living room and imagine what he'd say if he saw all this, how the house felt less like home and more like a stage where I was always an understudy. Looking back, I should have paid more attention to the cracks. The signs were all there. But when you're used to being the one who fixes things, it's hard to believe that sometimes the damage is beyond repair. In that year, the facade began to fracture. I just didn't know yet how deep the break would go. Present day, Redmond, Washington. I was 32, standing in the eye of a storm I never truly saw coming. 72 hours to pack up, move out, and leave behind more than just furniture or memories. I had always been the one who fixed things, who held it all together, but this was different. This was a fracture too deep to mend with a roll of tape or a few extra shifts at work. The first night after my parents' announcement, I barely slept. The rain outside was relentless, the house creaking and sighing with every gust of wind. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, counting the ways I had tried to make this place whole, running over lists in my head, repairs, payments, years lost, things unsaid. I got up before dawn, my body heavy, but my mind oddly sharp. In the kitchen, I watched the sky turn from black to gray. The silence in the house felt final. I opened my laptop not to search for new apartments, but to gather every scrap of proof I'd ever saved. Receipts, bank statements, emails confirming repairs, each a small piece of my presence, my years of invisible labor. For the first time, I called Harper. She's been my friend since college, the kind of person who remembers your birthday and sends you memes when work gets tough. Now, she was also my last lifeline, a lawyer who knew how to read between the lines and how to fight without raising her voice. Harper answered on the first ring. "Rachel, you sound awful. What's going on?" The words tumbled out. I told her everything, the 72-hour notice, the way my parents handed over the house to Madison, the years of work and sacrifice. There was a pause on the other end of the line. I could almost hear her mind racing, putting the pieces together faster than I ever could. "Rachel, do you have any paperwork about the house title? Will anything official?" I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "I have a folder. Every payment, every repair, my name's on everything." She exhaled. "Okay, bring it all. And Rachel, don't panic. We'll look into this. There's always a paper trail. Sometimes people hide it, but it's there." The rest of the day blurred by in a haze. I pulled files from drawers, boxes from closets, scrolled through email chains late into the afternoon. Every document I found became a lifeline, a way to anchor myself to reality. I remembered the first time I paid the mortgage, my hands shaking as I hit transfer. All the upgrades, each one with my name attached. New furnace, washer, leaky window. Over $120,000 spent not just on keeping a roof over my head, but on keeping my family afloat. That evening, the house felt smaller. I watched my parents move through the rooms, quietly discussing logistics. Madison called once, her voice distant, even over the phone. "Rachel, I know this is hard, but you always land on your feet. You're strong. Just pack up, okay? I'm sure Mom and Dad will help you find a place." I hung up without replying. There were no words left for that kind of comfort. By the second day, Harper met me at a small coffee shop downtown. She brought her laptop, a yellow legal pad, and a look that meant business. She glanced over my stack of papers, making quick notes. "This is good, really good. I'll check the county records office tomorrow. If there's a will, a deed, anything official in your name, we'll find it." Sometimes families forget to mention things. I managed a bitter laugh. "Yeah, sometimes they forget a lot." She squeezed my hand. "You're not alone. Not in this. I promise." Back at home, I found myself pacing from room to room. Every item had a story: the mug from college graduation, the old photo of my grandfather in the backyard, the worn rug Mom refused to throw out. I couldn't bring myself to start packing, not yet. It felt too much like surrender. That night, I sat cross-legged on the floor, sorting through every document, each memory. The pain of betrayal mixed with a strange new energy, something fierce and focused. For so long, I had accepted my place as the responsible one, the caretaker. Now with the clock ticking, I felt anger crystallize into determination. Harper texted late, "Found something. Call me when you can." I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. This wasn't over. Maybe, just maybe, there was a way to reclaim what I'd lost. I lay back, staring at the ceiling as the rain picked up again, tapping against the window like an old friend with a warning. The house felt different now, not a refuge, but a battleground. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid to fight. As dawn approached, I realized I wasn't packing just to leave. I was packing for a confrontation, a final stand for everything I'd built. Redmond, Washington. 48 hours left. For the first time in days, I felt a sharp jolt of hope cut through the exhaustion and anger, a hope that was both exhilarating and terrifying. The morning started with a knock on my door. Harper stepped inside her coat, still damp from the rain. She carried a slim folder under her arm and a determined look in her eyes. I went to the county records office, first thing she said, barely waiting for me to pour her coffee. "Rachel, your grandfather's will is real, and it's not just any will. It specifically names you as the sole heir to the house." I stared at her, the words slow to sink in. But my parents, they never said a word. "It's been 3 years. She nodded, flipping open the folder to show me a copy. Sometimes families think hiding the truth is easier than facing it. But this was filed notarized, and it's all legal. The house was always supposed to be yours. I took the papers, my hands trembling as I traced the lines of my grandfather's signature. I remembered how he used to sit on the porch with me as a child, his voice soft but firm. "This house will always belong to you, Rachel. Remember that." Now the words felt heavier than ever. Harper set down her mug. "We need to act quickly. You've already got the bank statements, the receipts for all the repairs, over $110,000 in mortgage payments, plus $10,000 more for upgrades. That's a paper trail nobody can ignore." I nodded, gathering the folders I'd spent all night organizing. For the first time, every sacrifice, every missed holiday, every late night shift became something tangible, something I could lay out in black and white. The phone rang. Madison. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won out. Her voice came through bright and breezy. "Hey, Rachel, I know things are tense right now, but I'm sure we can sort this out. I mean, it's just a house. You always make things so complicated." I felt my chest tighten. "Madison, I kept this place together for years. I paid for it when no one else would. Did you know about the will?" She hesitated just a beat too long. "I mean, Mom and Dad said everything would work out. They thought it'd be easier if I handled things since I have more time now. Why are you making this so dramatic?" I closed my eyes. For so long, I had tried to keep the peace, to be the reliable one. But her words stung careless, dismissive, another reminder that I was never supposed to want more than what I was given. Harper took the phone gently from my hand and spoke, her voice calm and measured. "Madison, this isn't about drama. This is about legality. There's a will. Rachel is the legal heir, and she's got every right to stay. We'll be moving forward with the necessary filings today." There was a long silence on the other end. When Madison finally spoke, her voice was cool. "Do what you have to do." After the call, Harper scribbled out a checklist on her legal pad, next steps, forms to file a timeline that left no room for doubt. "We have to submit a formal challenge, serve notice to your parents. The paperwork will speak for itself." We worked through the afternoon, compiling everything, every transfer, every repair, every piece of proof. It was exhausting, but for the first time, I felt something shift. I wasn't just reacting, I was taking control. The tension in the house thickened. Mom and Dad avoided me, shuffling quietly from room to room, pretending nothing had changed. I heard whispered conversations behind closed doors, caught flashes of concern when they thought I wasn't looking. That night, I sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by stacks of documents and the soft yellow light of the old lamp. I thought of all the years I spent believing that if I worked hard enough, if I loved enough, things would balance out. Now, with the proof in my hands, I saw just how wrong I'd been. I remembered the sound of my grandfather's voice, the warmth of his hand as he pressed that old mug into mine. "You're stronger than you think, Rachel." For so long, I'd believed that strength meant endurance, shouldering every burden, staying quiet, never asking for more. But maybe, just maybe, strength meant standing up, speaking out, refusing to be erased. Before heading to bed, I looked around the house one last time. The familiar creak of the floorboards, the faint smell of coffee, the soft hum of the heater, all the small things I'd kept running for so long. They thought I'd just walk away. Not this time. Redmond, Washington. Less than 24 hours remained. The house felt emptier, stripped of comfort, but my thoughts had never been clearer. Harper came by at sunrise. Hair pulled back, briefcase in hand. She looked every bit the attorney I'd always known she could be. "You ready?" she asked. Her tone was soft, but her eyes said there was no room for hesitation. I nodded, pressing the envelope into her palm. "Serve them now. I can't wait anymore." Harper nodded back, walking with quiet confidence into the kitchen where Mom and Dad sat with their morning coffee, the silence heavier than steam rising from their mugs. She placed the envelope on the table and explained her words, careful but unyielding. "This is an official notice. Rachel has the legal documentation for this house. There's a will, there are receipts. She's asserting her rights." For a moment, nobody moved. Dad finally spoke, voice sharp. "How could you do this to us, Rachel? We're your family." Mom shook her head, eyes glistening. "We thought you understood. We did what we thought was best. Madison, she needs a place. You'll land on your feet. You always do." I clenched my hands, trying to steady my breathing. I gave everything I had to keep this house, my money, my time, my life. Madison never asked what it cost me. "Did you?" There was a pause, tension humming in the air, the kind that makes you feel small in your own home. "We didn't want to fight," Dad said, softer now, as if regret could erase the years I spent patching walls and catching every bill before it came due. Harper placed a stack of my evidence on the table. "This isn't just a fight, it's the truth. Every document backs up Rachel's claim. Mortgage payments, upgrades, maintenance, it's all here." My parents exchanged a look. I saw the moment realization hit, the slow settling of facts into lives that never expected to be challenged. Mom's voice faltered. "Maybe we made mistakes. Maybe we just wanted peace." I almost pitied them. Almost. The phone buzzed Madison again. This time I put her on speaker. "Rachel, why are you doing this?" Her voice was syrupy, practiced. "This isn't you. You're not the kind of person who takes things from family." I kept my voice steady. "I'm not taking anything. I'm claiming what's mine. I spent years holding everything together while you were gone. Did you ever stop to wonder why the house was still here when you visited?" She scoffed. "This isn't about the house. You're just angry, that's all." "Maybe I am," I said, my voice growing firmer. "But I won't let you or anyone else write me out of my own life." There was silence. On the screen, I could see her face, the mix of annoyance and disbelief I'd grown used to over the years. Madison always thought the world owed her another chance, another excuse. Harper interrupted gently. "You all have 24 hours. After that, the legal process moves forward. This isn't a negotiation." The day moved in slow motion. My parents avoided me moving through the house as if I were already gone. Boxes piled up in the hallway, filled with things that belonged to all of us, reminders of birthdays, holidays, years lost to hope. That evening, I wandered from room to room, pausing at the window in the living room, watching dusk settle over the yard. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was thick, pressing in from all sides. I realized grief wasn't just for what you lose, but for what you never had a family that saw you, valued you, let you be more than just the safety net. As I packed my childhood photos and a few small keepsakes, my grandfather's mug, an old scarf Mom knitted when I was little, I felt both lighter and heavier. Lighter because the burden wasn't mine to carry anymore. Heavier because endings never arrive quite how you imagine them. Late that night, Harper called to check in. Her voice was a steady hand in the dark. "You did the right thing, Rachel. This was always yours." I nodded even though she couldn't see me. "I know. I just wish it didn't have to hurt so much." "It means you cared," she said. "You cared enough to fight." When we hung up, I sat on the front steps, house key, cool in my palm. For the first time, I wasn't sure what tomorrow would look like. I was certain only of this: I would never again let someone else decide my worth. I closed my eyes and listened to the wind rustling through the trees, the familiar song of home changed forever. There would be no going back. Inside, I placed the legal envelope on the kitchen table where it caught the last rays of evening sun, a symbol of everything I was willing to lose and everything I was finally willing to claim. Redmond, Washington. Deadline morning. The house was so still I could hear my own heartbeat, each moment stretching longer than the last. In a few hours, the old order would end. The sun broke through the gray, casting slanted light through the front windows, catching dust motes and memories that clung to the air. Harper arrived early, her presence, grounding briefcase tucked under her arm. She sat across from me at the kitchen table, reviewing the documents for the final time. The will, the proof of every payment, the legal forms we'd prepared. Her calm steadiness gave me something to hold on to. "Ready?" she asked, her voice gentle. I nodded, though my hands trembled as I smoothed my skirt and stacked the paperwork in order. My parents came in together, their faces drawn, eyes rimmed with sleeplessness. Madison joined by video, called her face pixelated, but her tone sharp as ever. We gathered in the living room neutral ground. Sunlight glinted off the signed documents on the coffee table. Harper spoke first, her tone clear but never cruel. "We're here to finalize what should have been clear from the beginning. Rachel is the legal heir to this house. Everything has been reviewed and verified by the county." Dad shifted in his chair, mouth twisting. "After all we've done for you, this is how you repay us." Mom's voice was thin, almost pleading. "Rachel family doesn't fight like this. We're supposed to stick together." My heart hammered. I thought about every late night spent at the kitchen table, every overtime shift, every quiet holiday. I remembered the years of swallowing my needs, believing that peace meant silence. I stood, voice unsteady but clear. "I spent years holding this place together. I paid for the mortgage, the repairs, the things you didn't want to handle. Madison was gone, but you always made excuses for her. I was invisible until you needed something fixed." Madison cut in her voice, chilly through the speaker. "I never wanted any of this. You're making a scene over nothing. You always act like you're the only one who matters." My breath caught anger and sadness twined together. This isn't about scenes, it's about respect. I'm not taking the house from anyone, I'm simply refusing to be erased. For once, I'm standing up for myself. Harper interjected, spreading the will and legal forms on the table. "The law is clear. The house was left to Rachel. You can protest, but it won't change the facts." There was a silence, heavy enough to crush. Dad looked away, hands clenched. Mom wiped her eyes. Madison, seeing no way forward, disconnected from the call with a clipped goodbye. The rest happened in slow motion. My parents shuffled to the kitchen, voices hushed, years of assumptions falling away. Harper guided me through the last signatures, her hand steady on my shoulder, as I signed my name for the final time. The pen clicked, echoing in the stillness. The house for so long, a stage for everyone else's needs, finally belonged to me. Harper packed away the papers. "It's done," she whispered. "You did it." I wanted to cry, to scream, to laugh. So many emotions knotted inside me that all I could do was stand there breathing. Outside, the sky was bluer than it had been in days. My parents paused at the door. Dad managed, "We'll find somewhere to go. I hope someday you understand." I held the door as they walked out, each step echoing through the empty rooms. There was no shouting, no dramatic goodbyes, only quiet and a sense of something ending. I locked the door not in anger, but in something like relief. The silence was heavy but not unbearable. I moved through the house, my house running my fingers along the walls, touching the windows. I'd replaced the floors, I'd sanded the mug my grandfather left me. The home felt both larger and emptier space, opening up where old resentments used to live. That night, I sat at the kitchen table, now just mine, holding the house keys in my palm. The quiet justice wasn't the roar of victory I'd once imagined, but a gentle, certain calm. For the first time, I felt like the ground beneath me was solid. As the moonlight spilled across the kitchen, I realized I was free, not because I'd won, but because I'd finally stopped asking for permission to exist. Redmond, Washington. Weeks passed, and the silence in the house changed shape. At first, it was hollow and sharp, a reminder of everything that had been lost. But slowly, it softened like a new layer of paint over old walls, hinting at possibility. The days slipped into a quieter routine. I woke to sunlight streaming through clean windows, the rooms finally filled with air that belonged to me. I moved through the house at my own pace, picking up objects and deciding one by one what to keep. The old mug my grandfather gave me stayed its chipped rim, a reminder of steadfast love. A few childhood photos made it to a new frame on the mantel. Other things I quietly boxed up for donation or tucked away in the attic, ready to let go. For the first time in years, I stopped bracing for footsteps or the sharp click of my parents' voices behind a closed door. There was space now to breathe. Harper visited on a Saturday, bringing pastries and a bottle of something sparkling. She hugged me in the doorway, her arms tight and steady. You did it, Rachel. Not just the legal stuff. You finally put yourself first. We sat at the kitchen table, sunlight catching on the stack of final paperwork now tucked safely in a drawer. I poured coffee, the ordinary act feeling momentous. Sometimes it still feels unreal, I admitted. Like any moment, someone's going to walk in and take it all back. Harper smiled. That feeling fades. You earned this, every inch of it. We toasted with coffee instead of champagne, both of us laughing at the sheer ordinariness of the moment. I felt lighter, as if the house itself had exhaled. After Harper left, I wandered into the backyard. The grass was a little long weeds sprouting at the edges, but I didn't mind. I knelt to clear a patch for a small garden, hands in the earth, the afternoon sun warm on my shoulders. It was a slow process tending to this new life, one plant at a time, one breath at a time. Sometimes memories caught me off guard, a flash of Dad teaching me to hammer a nail or Mom braiding my hair in the kitchen before school. I let the memories come, felt the ache, and let them go. There was no dramatic reconciliation, no perfect family picture waiting at the end. There was just me, and that was enough. Inside, I began adding little touches, new curtains in the bedroom, a painting I'd always wanted for the living room, soft lights over the dining table. I invited Harper and a couple of close friends over for dinner, laughter, filling the spaces that used to echo with tension. The best part was waking each morning with no one else's expectations pressing on my shoulders. No more being the responsible one for everyone but myself. I set my own schedule, ate breakfast in the garden, and took time to read, letting the quiet unfold. Occasionally, Madison would send a message short, polite, skirting around anything real. My parents kept their distance, a postcard arriving for my birthday, but little else. I felt sadness for what we never truly had, but it no longer defined me. One morning, I stood in the doorway, sunlight on my face, and realized the fear was gone. I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. This house, my house, was no longer a battleground. It was a beginning. I took a moment to reflect, fingers wrapped around that chipped mug, breathing in the comfort of ownership, of boundaries kept, of peace finally found. The life ahead would not be simple. There would be moments of loneliness, flashes of regret, but they would be mine to face, not debts, to pay for someone else's mistakes. I had fought quietly and fiercely for my own place in the world. I had learned that it is not selfish to draw a line and say, this is mine. For the first time, the house in my life belonged to me. The weeks after everything settled were quieter than I ever imagined. My world was smaller, but every inch of it was finally mine. For the first time in years, I didn't wake with worry pressing down on my chest. Instead, there was room for peace and a gentle, growing sense of pride. Looking back, I learned that being the responsible one doesn't mean carrying everyone else's burdens forever. Sometimes it means having the courage to let go, to draw boundaries, to insist on your own worth, even when it's uncomfortable. Healing isn't a grand moment. It's 100 small choices, saying no standing tall, starting over. To anyone listening, maybe you've been the quiet strength for others, the person who always held things together. Maybe you've felt invisible or worn down by obligations you never chose. I hope my story reminds you it's not selfish to choose yourself. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to stop asking for permission and simply claim what's yours. If you've ever faced a turning point like this, I'd love to hear your thoughts below. And if my story resonated with you, I hope you'll join me for the next chapter, because we all deserve to write our own endings.